Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Yes, I think we can do better than that. Let's start again. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Much better. I know it's very late in the afternoon, but let's try to have some fun in this session. Welcome to all the participants and attendees to this side event on Indigenous perspectives in land restoration, conservation, and rights. It is really my pleasure to have you all with us here at the Land and Drop Pavilion. And also for those of you who are joining virtually, wherever you're in the world tuning in, it is also our pleasure to have you with us today. My name is Paula Padrino, and I work at the G20 Global Land Initiative, and I'm the Project Management Officer. The G20 Global Land Initiative was created during the Saudi Arabia presidency by the G20 countries, and we have the global ambition to achieve 50% reduction of degraded land by 2040. In the past weeks, we have heard in this stage, but also in many other stages here at COP, the importance of land restoration, the importance of land conservation, and also the alarming rate at which land is being degraded worldwide. So states have made many commitments and pledges in the international arena of restoring land. Actually, 1 billion hectares of land has been pledged to be restored. There has been some advancements in this stage, but we are yet far away from achieving these targets. A recent UNCCD report actually shows that since 2015, we have degraded more than 100 million hectares of land every year. So if we continue like this, we're just bridging and making the gap even bigger, and we will have to restore between 1.5 and 5 billion hectares of land by 2040. So today is COP's theme, Nature Day, and we decided to bring another layer to the conversations that we've been having and bring along the Indigenous perspectives into the stage. Indigenous communities and First Nations play a pivotal role in soil conservation, in preserving biodiversity, and avoiding the degradation of life. The communities have thrived in harmony with the environment for generations and generations, and they offer invaluable insights into how can we live sustainably and insights into land stewardship as well. At the G20 Global Land Initiative, we try to engage with civil society and different groups, and Indigenous communities is one of them. It's part of our mandate to raise awareness about the issues that Indigenous communities might be facing, but also to upscale or raise the voices of Indigenous communities around the world. This side event aims at exploring what are the knowledge and best practices that different communities that we have on the stage can bring to the table. And also we would like to have an open dialogue on what are the issues that you are facing, and maybe like how are you trying to resolve those issues in your different communities, and what can we learn from one another. So I'm extremely excited about the presentations from our panel of experts. I am joined here in the stage with 4 leaders who are carrying out incredible work in your countries, regions, and local communities as well. We will hear your views and your stories. We have Emanuela right on the at the back, at the right side. Emanuela Shinta coming from Indonesia, and she's from the Dayak community. We have Monica Yator coming from Kenya. We have Federico Perez coming from Colombia. And finally, we have Maria Jose Artis coming from Suriname. So I'll present them more in depth later on. The way that we have organized this session is we will have a 5-minute introduction by each of the speakers, where they will present where they're coming from, what are the challenges that they're facing as in the Indigenous communities. And then we will move on to the questions and answers, where you as the audience, you can ask questions to them. They can ask questions among themselves and trying to find some solutions or some ideas of how they can solve some of the problems that they might face. So, without further ado, I'd like to begin and introduce our first panelist, so Monica Yator. Monica from Kenya, she's the founder of Indigenous Women and Rights and Girls Initiative, and she's a team leader of GLF Baringo chapter in Kenya. She's a strong activist in climate change, gender equality, social inclusion, and Indigenous people's rights. She's also known for her contribution to agroecologic movement in climate action. So, Monica, you have 5 minutes. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much for having me here, and also giving us an opportunity to share our stories and the journey that we have been. I'm a pastoralist and a feminist for that case. And my journey started way back in 2019. I used to advocate for anti-FGM campaigns, anti-GBV campaigns, but that was not enough. I realized that we are jumping into SDG 5 and forgetting that we have SDG 1 and SDG 2. And coming from a pastoralist community, women in my community are the breadwinners. They're the one feeding the household and also feeding the economy. So without food, you are putting women at risk. And this risk, of course, is exacerbated by climate change. You see women walking for kilometers to look for water, to look for firewood, to look for, even they go to the market to fetch, to get vegetables, of which they can produce those vegetables in their own backyard. So I realized, no, I need to start a restoration initiative by introducing agroecology for among the women. And these women are depending so much on livestock. And to my community, livestock belongs to the man. So in case, for that case, if a man goes to sell the livestock, maybe a goat or a camel or a sheep, he does not come back. At times they go away for the next 3 to 4 days. So who suffers? The person who suffers is the woman and the children at home. So introducing agroecology was a true pass to me. I realized that we can feed the economy. We can also build the self-confidence of our women and also give them a chance to even engage in decision-making platforms, because they're confident enough, they can pay school fees alone, they can support their children up to school. So to me, that was a key take, and I also want to urge everybody else to support dryland restoration through agroecology, and I would like us to speak more, how can we bring women voices, especially the pastoralist communities who have transitioned to agroecology, who have transitioned to sustainable food system. We are not talking about carbon. We know carbon is there, but can we talk about feeding fast? We need food fast. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Monica. That's very, very interesting. And we'd like to explore more about your agroforestry projects later on in the Q&A. I'd now like to introduce our second speaker, Emanuela Shinta. Emanuela flew all over from Indonesia, and she's a Dayak leader and activist. She's the founder of Ranu Wellum Foundation. Her expertise in youth environmental activism and indigenous digital storytelling has empowered many people around the world. So Emanuela, I'd like to pass the floor over to you.
Thank you so much. Memanale patuntu ulu. Aku naruh tangan Andri arai ate daya takam ta upanalu. With a grateful heart, I would like to welcome you in this event. Thank you so much for having us here and having me especially. Adil Katalino bacuramin kasaruga basengat kajubata arus arus arus. Greetings from Dayak people. My name is Emanuela Shinta. I'm coming from Kalimantan Island. That's a part of the Borneo Island that belong to Indonesia. I belong to Dayak Manyan tribe, and we Dayak people are the first people of Borneo Island. And we consist about like 400 different sub-tribes, all speak different languages and also have different culture. And where I come from is an island very rich in natural resources and wildlife, biodiversity. And my work is specifically to empower indigenous youth and mobilize them to be at the front line of this environmental battle that we have in Kalimantan. Because Kalimantan is such a very rich island, of course also there is a lot of challenges and it experiences massive deforestations right now. Like more than 90% of the real habitat of orangutan is gone. More than 50% of the rainforest in Borneo is gone. Everything is under threat. And especially with the forest fires and haze that already happened since 1997, every year, we experience a lot of damage, environmental destructions. That's where I was born and I have been growing up. So it comes to me that we cannot just stay silent and waiting for someone to fix it, whether it is conservationists or like Western green organizations or the UN or government, because forest is the part of our identity. And with the indigenous youth in Kalimantan, we have this in our mind, you know, like we started not because we want to protect or like, oh, we have idea about restore, because previously, you know, like indigenous people in Kalimantan, like we don't have any idea about what is restoring. Why? Because what we know, there is no damage. I mean, like we know no damage. We only know like very beautiful island, the homeland where we are living, right? So when people talk about restoring degraded land, what does it mean? Right? One thing that we only know is we are the keeper, the protectors of this area, of this land. And the way we see that is the forest for Dayak people is the part of our own identity. So with that very basic, like, I don't know whether some people call it principles, but for us it's an indigenous wisdom. We finally mobilized like almost 1,000, I think it's 929 right now, young leaders all across the island and more than 3,000 volunteers to join us in climate actions using indigenous ecological knowledge, mobilizing indigenous youth to tackle climate change and to participate actively in land restoration in Kalimantan. I think that's all that I can share for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emanuela. Very inspiring as well, and thank you for sharing that song. That was really nice to hear. I would like to present now our next speaker, Frederico Perez. Frederico is the founder of Selvitas. He is a social entrepreneur and an environmental advocate. His innovative approach integrates indigenous communities into climate action initiatives, combating deforestation in Latin America, in Colombia. So, Federico, thank you very much for being here. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Paula. Appreciate it. And thanks for the G20 Global Land Initiatives for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. So one of my first memories as a kid was going with my father to help indigenous communities. And at one point, I really had that sense of agency. The sense of the impact we can make on other people and on our environments. And then as I was growing up, kind of all my behaviors or actions were done towards creating an impact towards other people. So after coming back to Colombia, I decided to start a business that was focused on commodities exports. But then when you go to the land, you realize the severe land degradation, the deforestation, and some of the different kinds of practices that are led by market-based economies, especially when they don't involve the different people that live in these areas. So I really thought on a solution that had to be focused on working with the people, how we can create solutions. But then once we started engaging them and working towards exporting their commodities, then the pandemic came, and that was kind of a huge pressure because there was no kind of support. And sometimes when these communities are left into a situation where there's no kind of government support, there's no education, no healthcare, there's no backdrop where they can go, so they turn into different kinds of externalities that in the past have led to some of Colombia's violence and threats. So what I thought was creating an initiative where you can leverage different types of investors, not only private, but also public and philanthropic. So when we were able to understand the different contexts of each community, the challenges that we're going through, then we were able to create a restoration initiative, specifically in the Jaguar corridor, where we're able to support this umbrella species and increase the biodiversity across these tropical forest landscapes. And in addition to that, I've been able to understand that not only market-based mechanisms are the things that drive these initiatives. What you have to do is work like in a holistic approach with the public sector, and be able to enable these public policies that are gonna lead the transformation of the different communities and also the stakeholders that are working towards creating successful restoration initiatives, not only in Colombia, but also in Latin America. So in addition to that, you don't only have to think about it in silos. So it's not only the indigenous communities, also the local peoples, the peasants, the Afro-descendant community. So when we're able to understand, let's say, if they don't have the land, then we work together with them, and we were able to grant 8,000 families land tenure, and really be able to understand how you can create a systemic change.
Thank you, Federico. Last but not least, let me introduce to our final speaker of today. We have Maria Jose Artis. She's a community development expert representing the associations of indigenous village leaders in Suriname. She has over 20 years of experience, and she leads initiatives focusing on capacity building and empowerment of indigenous communities. Maria, we are very eager to hear from you, so over to you.
Yes, thank you, Paula. Thank you for having me here so I can share something of information with you about indigenous peoples in Suriname. Let me first ask you, do you know Suriname? Do you know where Suriname is? Yeah, you're from South America, so you should know. And I see one person in the audience as well. But Suriname is in the northern part of South America. It's above Brazil, so to say. We have on the one side we have French Guyana, so French colonized, and at the other side is British Guyana, British colonized, and we were Dutch colonized. Suriname, we have indigenous peoples and we do have tribal peoples, we call them. These are the descendants of the slaveries. They also live in the interior together, different places, own communities, but as indigenous peoples, they live also in the forest. We work, our organization work with the indigenous village leaders, the traditional authorities. They have their indigenous peoples organization, so it is a informal organization, but the secretary of them is a foundation, and I'm one of the persons working within the foundation. This is important to say because it's actually the traditional village leaders who make the policy and who tells us what is their priority and what we need to work on. At this moment, we are working in one of the communities, Konamerume, with Karinya people. And this community decided, after a process, that they will be focusing on building, I'm not going to use the word more, but building an economy, because I mean, we don't use the word economy when we talk about our way of life in the communities, but building a way of life in the community where what is very sustainable with nature, what is in harmony with nature, and they really took this decision. They were very aware by taking this decision what it would mean. We work a lot with maps in Suriname, and we started to work with maps. We made maps of indigenous and tribal territories, because in Suriname, the collective rights of indigenous peoples are not recognized. So by making these maps, we had a tool, we had a proof that what is our lands. Now we have demarcated all our lands. Our rights are not still not recognized, but we use the maps. We work with the maps, and in Konamerume we also built together with the community a three-dimensional map. And this three-dimensional map, the whole process, the way we did work on it, included all the community members, so school children, the youth, the women, the elder. And until now, actually, it is an ongoing process because the elder keeps talking about different parts on the map, and they stand around the map and they talk about different parts and they tell stories, but also they talk about how to use different, for instance, non-timber forest products. And during that whole process, they really decided, so we are going to build our way of living based on what we have, the wisdom, what we have on our land. And they are looking for instance, they wanted to have a bigger income out of agriculture. And they knew if they will clean the land, that would not be a good thing. So they started to look for an alternative how to have a bigger income out of agriculture, and then out of that research, you can say, they decided to work with agroforestry, because agroforestry is nearby, close to what they already used to do, how to work with the land. But with agroforestry, they are also able to have bigger parts of land to have more products to sell. This is only one example, but it is also about ecotourism. It's also, and I like the thing that you also said about a holistic approach. You cannot work on this in this manner without doing it from a holistic approach. That is very important. I think I stop for now.
Thank you. No, thank you very much. I wanted to ask a question to Monica. Your presentation, you were working with agroforestry projects, and I wanted to know a little bit more about the land conservation, land restoration, and what are the challenges that pastoralist communities in Kenya or other countries that you might have worked, what's the situation, and what can you share with us on that particular topic? Mic is not working? Maybe. Excuse me, the mic is, let's see.
We are facing a lot of challenges, especially now that we are using our land communally. We don't have title to this land. And if you look at the laws in Kenya about community land use, they say what is above, we can use the land, but we cannot use the land below. If the government realizes there is gold or there is a mineral resource down, they will come and take the land from us. So there is a lot of inequality, especially in community land use. We have seen communities being evicted. You can see now the case of Ogie community. If you are watching news, and also we had some communication with the government as well, we have evictions that is going on. The government want to take up the forest because they want to do carbon trading. And I'm wondering, why don't they do carbon trading and leave the indigenous people to protect the forest as well? So you see the people who are coming to displace us are people who want to do industrial agriculture. It's not actually the carbon business they are doing. We also have unsustainable land tenure system. You saw the case of Loliondo in Tanzania, in Ngorongoro, where pastoralists in Tanzania were evicted by the government. They want to give this land to a private investor to do hunting. So you are wondering, what is conservation if they cannot respect human rights and also the indigenous people's rights? So again, we have this conversion of community land without prior consent to the people who are living there. They are not considering the FPIC guidelines that it was given. So again, you wonder, why are people talking about restoration, yet they are not considering the lives in that land? If the indigenous communities have been living in the forest and taking care of the forest, why don't they be part of this carbon business if there is business in selling air or what? Because we don't even know what is this air being sold, what is this carbon business. So it is the restoration that they are bringing in is not inclusive. We don't understand. So we need to understand this restoration as well. And also, if you see the government projects that is coming in my country, they are focusing in rainforest areas where there is rains, but nobody is talking about the pastoralist community who is living in arid and semi-arid areas. Our land now is so degraded. We have deep gullies, very big, covering a big land. We don't know when will the government think of restoring these dryland areas. They are not even supporting the small-scale initiative that we are doing now, improving land through agroecology and also biodiversity conservation that we are doing. So we need to even tell our government to focus and also support grassroots organizations working to support climate action, and also think about food and not carbon business, because our problem is already food. We are already struggling to feed our own families, even the society. So let's start bottom up, respect rights, and also start with what is necessity, a basic need, which is food. Thank you.
Thank you. You raised very important points. You raised the point about inclusivity of restoration. You brought the point about how government should be working with the communities rather than isolating them or not taking their views into account. And we need a holistic approach. It was mentioned by both of our speakers as well. I wanted to hear a bit from Emanuela and seeing like if some of the points made by Monica resonates to you. You have done huge activism amongst the young community in your island. And I wanted to know what's your relationship with the government. Do you feel or do you face the same challenges as Monica has explained? Or if so, how has your activism have you achieved any policy changes, or it's still very difficult, or what are some of the successes that you can share with us through your activism in this space?
Thank you. Yeah, I think, like it's like a common problem, right? When government have these projects or like plan coming to one area and try to implement it without consulting what is the need of the community. And that's also what we have in Indonesia, specifically in Kalimantan. Like I mentioned earlier, like we have this problem with forest fires since 97, every year till even like 2 months ago, like we have a very bad fires in haze where like the pollutions like really equals to smoke like hundreds of cigarettes in a day. So imagine how the babies and elders and pregnant women and even like youth like us like breathing in such kind of poisonous air. But the problem right now with government is, even though like there is a lot of claims that we are successfully reduced the number of the fire spots in Indonesia, or like specifically in Kalimantan, but the fact it keeps happening every year. So something is not right there, right? And even lately, there is this one innovations coming from another country. I think it's from Japan at the time. They bring this technology. They say, okay, this technology can be used to stop these peat fires, because peat fire, it's different compared to the normal wildfires. It's burning under the surface of the ground. 2 meters, 3 meters under the surface of the ground. But still, the fires still happen. And who can stop the fires? If we only rely on the official firefighters, it's impossible. So my team and I, we mobilize our young people to be volunteers as the firefighters at the front line. I myself, I went to this burning area in the middle of the night with our team. We have our machine pumping, we have our uniforms, we have our helmet, boots, safety gear, trying to stop the fires, because it's everywhere. It's over 2,000 in our province alone. Nearby our city, it's more than 500. So it's everywhere. So, we as young people, we have been enough, like we kept saying, please immediate action before it becomes the worst. But still, I will say government wait until it becomes very, very worse and like it's like emergency level, and then they start to take actions. But the thing here is not only about trying to put in the fires out, but it's about preventions, right? We have to be ready. It's about restoring the damaged area, and that's something that, well, it's challenging. I don't know. I don't want to say that we're not successful enough, like with all this restoration agency in Indonesia. I know there is a lot of claim, it's successful, but the fact is we living on the ground level, it's fire around us. So if you want to claim it's successful, it means the fire has to stop at all. Right? If we are still breathing in such polluted air, it means you are not successful enough with your project, with your program. And with our youth, well, if I may share some successful story, it's in 2019, we marched to the governor's office. At the time, we demand for the immediate actions and the provisions of the hay shelters in the school, which at the time the governor accepted. After we marched for 8 days, accepted, signed the petitions on, we will do as you want. But until now, there is still no his protocols and his shelters in the schools, and children keep exposed to this pollution whenever the fire and hay season come. So if we say like we're successful to change the policy, yes, there is a change at the time, but the implementations of that policy, I think that's the challenge. But another successful story also, because we demand like for government to stop keep blaming the indigenous farmers as the one who started the fires. So I remember like 2 years after that, there was the regulations then changed because they will allow the indigenous farmer to burn under 2 hectares for farming. Because the fires in Kalimantan, it happened because of the palm oil plantations mostly, not because of the cultural burning of the community. So these misconceptions, we try to make it straight, and our local governors at the time, they agree to release like, okay, the statement like it's not the farmers that are the one that start the fire, and then they make the policy that will allow the farmers to burn. So that's some of successful story, but I think the point here is the change, you know, like we as young people, you see a lot of movement right now, and young people try to pressure the government, give the pressure so there is a change in the policy. But how effective is that? In our case, in Indonesia, it's not that effective. It's not enough. I mean, like young people, especially indigenous youth, it's not enough yet to change the policy. I think in Indonesian context, whether it is in regional and national level, that should be the inclusion of the voices of indigenous youth on the table of decision making. And that's something that I still have not seen that in Indonesians process of decision making. So I hope maybe they will listen after maybe watching this live streaming. I don't know, but that's really my hope in the future.
Thank you very much, Emanuela. Thank you. You raise 2 very important points. One is prevention. So I used to work in disasters and conflicts. So we used to try to make people think about disasters and think about prevention rather than the aftermath of a disaster, whether if it was a landslide, a tsunami, an earthquake. So if we prepare appropriately, then the risk would be less and the population would suffer less. So prevention, it is indeed a very important point. The second point is about implementation challenges and how sometimes it's hard to from the policy level to actually get into the actual activity and the implementation level. And I want to reach to Maria Jose, and you have vast experience in restoration projects. You have the Good Life plans, and I want to know how does it work in Suriname? All these national and international projects that you're supervising or you're being involved with, how can we achieve large-scale restoration? What are the challenges, or how do you address this with your own governments, and how do you actually make the implementation successful?
Yes, this might be disappointing.
Okay.
But yes, in Suriname, as I said, we don't have our collective rights recognized. At the same time, we are in good, well, let me say it a different way. According to the government, our organization, the traditional authorities, are the speaking partner of the government. So we stay in dialogue with the government with all kinds of issues, and this had to do with political issues, but also with more based, local community-based problems, what is going on. But at the same time, it's talking nice words, but the outcome is not very good. But for that reason, it is also the communities themselves, of course, who take their own actions. And the community themselves, they are now starting building their own good life plans. We have a lot of challenges. Suriname is also one of the most forested we have the biggest forest coverage of all countries in the world. They say it is still 93%, but I can say that I think that's a little bit less, because of all other logging companies, foreign logging companies coming into Suriname. So I think it is now less, but still they are saying it's 93%. At the same time, we have gas and oil. We have gold. We have been mining bauxite for 100 years. So there is a lot of land deforestation and forest. Well, I'm mixing the words, but you understand. And it's the communities who are trying to keep this damage out of their land. But keeping that damage out of the land means that we don't want to have companies on our lands, and that is very difficult because we don't have our collective rights. So that's a big challenge to keep them out of the land. Until now, we managed to do that, but at the same time, we also see that the government is now bringing also foreigners who will do agriculture. And this means more deforestation because they will want to bring these foreign culturers, farmers. They will bring them on the territory of indigenous peoples, where there is still natural forest, you can say. So we do have big challenges. The communities make their life plans, the good life plans, so they can follow up their own program. But the challenges don't go away. They are still there. And we try to advocate and we lobby and we work very hard on. We also have decisions made by the Inter-American Court. So the government should recognize our land, and we are very hard working on that. But still, this is a big challenge for us, not having our rights. For the communities, they live in the community. They are not even looking at the rights each day, but they are experiencing that it's not there. It's not an each day, a talk of every day, but it is what they experience each day. Because each day can be a threat when there is this logging company coming to their land, or these boats are coming to take sand from the river and things like that. So sorry, I do not have a good answer. The answer that we can say, yes, this is what we can share with the world, or what we can transfer knowledge, or but this is the actual situation in Suriname.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. It is indeed a shame that the rights of indigenous communities and not the people of Suriname are not recognized by the government. I hope that changes soon. I want to ask Federico, what's the case in Colombia? Do you experience the same? And as well, how do you achieve, you were mentioning before about healthcare system and all of that during the COVID pandemic, then the people who were working the land did not have access to that. So through your restoration projects, how do you achieve both ecological, but at the same time some social goals? How do you support the communities as well?
So in Colombia, fortunately, it's a very different situation. And since the Constitution of 1991, the indigenous communities and the Afro-descended peoples got their collective rights. So when you see in the landmass of Colombia, around 1/3 of the country, of the land is owned by the indigenous communities. And the deforestation rates are significantly lower in their land. That means that by having in mind their ancestral practices, you can really believe in how they interact with their environment. But something that always puzzled me was when I was about to start this initiative, I got from various sorts of people that I shouldn't work with the indigenous communities because of like X, Y, Z reasons. I don't really want to mention them, but it's because the methodologies or the way they wanted to go into the land was really not aligning with the FPIC. Or being able to understand their individual context, because Colombia is also extremely biodiverse, the second most biodiverse country on earth, but also in terms of its people. I even have some indigenous roots. So what I've learned, and to give like some practical advice, I'm doing this course on the Yale School of Environment. It's called Tropical Forest Landscapes, and they have this, or it's kind of my North Star in terms of working with restoration projects. But towards this end, it's imperative to follow the 10 people-centered rules for socially sustainable ecosystem restoration. So I laid them out. So the first one is acknowledge the complexity and interconnectedness among stakeholders and right holders. Second, empower local communities as catalysts for transformation. Third, examine the social and historical backgrounds of these communities. Fourth, clarify and fortify land rights for underrepresented groups. Fifth, foster multidimensional and scalable equity. Sixth, cultivate the spectrum of benefits beyond the ecological. Seventh, ensure fair allocation of costs, risks, and rewards. Eighth, utilize a multifaceted evidence and knowledge base. Ninth, challenge the prevailing narratives and assumptions. And lastly, implement comprehensive and participatory monitoring, evaluation, and learning, which overall I think it leads to the holistic approach we were mentioning before.
Yeah. No, thank you very much for sharing that. Indeed, very useful. I take participatory, challenge the perceptions, and take a holistic approach. I would like to open the floor for anyone who might have a question. I feel like I've asked you too many, so maybe there's someone from the audience who have a particular question from our audience and want to share. Yes. Do we have the mic, please? Thank you very much. Yeah. We have a question from the audience. Thank you.
Thank you all. My name is Milena. I wanted to ask you, because all of you were saying the governments are really not actually accepting or acknowledging your rights. So if you have like a magic warrant, what is the one thing you really want to be changed to actually then see actionable actions which really improve livelihoods and life? And to what extent do you see like also businesses play a role in this transformation? Yeah, thanks.
I think we can take this question first, and then we can go through the next one. So if anyone wants to go ahead.
Yes, I would like to respond that. First thing is government, state and non-state actors should recognize that indigenous people exist. They have their own lifestyle, they have knowledge, they have solutions. So they need to include them in every development projects that they want to do. Let's say now, as you speak, we are focusing so much in the carbon trading. So where is the voice of indigenous people in this carbon trading? If I ask my mother now if she understands what is carbon, she'll tell you, I don't understand. But they used to keep the forests the indigenous way. We don't cut trees, but now people want to cut trees because they want to make paper, they want timber, they want ABCD. If you want now, you are telling us to plant 15 billion trees. I'm sorry to say that, 15 billion trees, and then we cut all the trees and then plant 15 billion trees. How long will those trees make to mature? First, we are not talking about food. People in my village now, women, before they were not burning charcoal, but we are burning charcoal now because we want to feed our families. Yet we are destroying the indigenous trees that will take forever to grow. So how are you bringing substitution, alternative livelihood to our people? And yet you want us to grow trees. You want to put up big industrial agriculture to destroy our soil. You are bringing us fertilizers to kill our soil, pesticides. And yet we have our indigenous ways of cultivating land using our organic pesticide. We use our livestock manure. Currently, they are not allowing us to use organic manure. Why? And we are using that before. So they want us to buy conventional pesticide to destroy again the soil. So again, there are some projects that are being imposed to us that is not for us. Thank you.
Okay, I totally agree with what Monica said. First, inclusion. That's very, very important, especially when we talk about land and natural resources. Without inclusive including the voices of indigenous community, you will go wrong. Like you will fail. And we in Kalimantan, we already experienced that. This over 2 decades forest fires, it resulted from the wrong land management, a good project, but not including the voices of the communities and indigenous local knowledge. And then the second one that I want to address is, like when you think of trees as an economic value, you will fail. Why? Because for indigenous people, we look at forest, we look at tree, we see life. We see identity. We see our mother. That's a part of ourselves. But here, a lot of I don't say particularly governments or maybe some business or stakeholders, companies, when they see the forests and trees only as economic value, you will fail. Believe me, you will fail. So it has to change. We change the mindset. Yes, of course, it gives economic value, but it's not the only value that you can see. When you see the trees as life, you want to protect it. You want to use it according to your need, not your greed, right? Because that's why we are called stewards of this earth. Indigenous stewardship. So I really believe that it has to change. And also there is a lot of not only community-led restorations effort on the ground level, but also social enterprise, local entrepreneurship. So they need to be supported because the change in economic, it's really, really important for people. But yeah, of course, in this case, Indonesia, we have also to change our, willingness to be developed, something like that. Hey, Indonesia, we're a developing country. Yes, of course, but you don't have to be go to the other side, want to be America, or that's what we call America. You don't have to be Germany. You don't have to be people high tech with all this, money overflow, right? Because, if you just want to go there without fixing your mess on the ground level, you will fail. Everyone will fail. So I think it has to change right now.
Yeah, and both of them resonate with what I think, the ecosystem services, having the people in mind. In my case, it would be land tenure and having proper governance of the food and land use systems. Because, for example, in Colombia, let's say there is different types of cooperatives and how they group together in order to sell let's say their coffee. But sometimes if they don't have the proper governance, there could be corruption, there could be power asymmetries, and all of these can be entrenched. But when you have the proper safeguards, then you're able not only to help them thrive economically, but also engage them and have them active in terms of democracy. So if you get together 100,000, 200,000 farmers, then you can start influencing the public policies and how you're able to have their voice in the decision-making table.
Yes, of course, collective land right is what we need. But I also want to mention the inclusiveness. But also, and then I'm going a little bit further about what you were saying. Because in this one project we are working on in Konemerume, we are using this, the work, what we are doing there as a model. It's, we call it the Indigenous strategy. And the indigenous strategy, how we can live in harmony with nature. And with we, I'm now talking about a coalition. We built a coalition with some academics and some green NGOs, and that's very scary for indigenous peoples. But these are people, friendly people, we are working with, we are engaging for a long time already. And they see that there is a possibility for transforming the national Suriname economy based on indigenous people's life. So they are now talking with us and learning from what is happening in the community. What we do in the community is value all these things from our indigenous perspectives, from our indigenous worldview. And we cannot tell that in numbers. But other people, like academics, but also policymakers, they want to see numbers. They want to hear numbers to understand what is possible, what is what is the income of a community, and what do they need, and what do they already have. So we decided now to do our own case studies in the community, and the way we are doing it already, just from our own indigenous worldview. But then at the same time, we will have to learn, we still don't know how, but we will have to learn from national and international experts how to translate that also in numbers, only to make it visible for other people on national level. And we think only in this manner we can also bring such a model to the national level, so that the indigenous strategy will become a national strategy. And it will take some time, but we hope that the COP30 will be in Beijing, which is only 1 hour flight from us, and we hope that we can showcase then what we have reached.
We definitely hope to see that, yes, taking place and being developed. There's another question from the audience, so I'll pass the floor back to you.
Is it working? Oh. Yes, mine is on the customary laws, because in restoring our ecosystems, we have customary laws that are guiding us. And I remember when we visited Indonesia, we were in Bali, and we visited one of the communities, and they told us that they are using the customary laws to guide them in restoring the ecosystem. But another thing is on the restoration, we don't talk of planting trees in our communities, but we are managing our ecosystems naturally. So our cattle will eat the acacia trees and give seeds, or maybe shake these pods of seeds during the movement, during the migrations and all this. And also the wild animals also are part of us. And when we take medicinal roots or barks or leaves of trees for our use, we have to ask, we take trees as families. So we ask to be allowed to take part of these plants. Nowadays we see this new fashion of laws that are not in connection with nature, and that's why there is a problem now, because this problem is about competition of these resources, and humans try to go away from nature. And now the humans realize that they are a danger, but they are still not acting, because we see, for example, in this process, indigenous peoples are part. But when it comes to allocation of resources to restore the ecosystems, the indigenous people get less. We have scientists in our own communities. We have technologies, we have indigenous knowledge, traditional knowledge, and all this. But still, it's not taken into consideration as the way IPCC is taken into consideration. So in restoring our ecosystem, conserving, we see that indigenous can play a great role in conserving and bring back our ecosystem in a natural way. And I think this should be taken into consideration. So on the element of rights, not only our rights are being violated, but also environmental rights and Mother Earth also violated, because we are distancing ourselves from natural laws. So this is, I don't know if it is a question or what, but I just wanted to point out. Thank you.
I think we can take it as a comment, and then perhaps our panel can contribute to that comment if they wish to. Or do you have a question related to the same?
Yeah, to me, I think this is a general and sensitive question. And please, you'll have to bear with me because I have to. My question is, us as the indigenous. First of all, my name is Edith Santien. I'm from Kenya, the Maasai indigenous communities, and I'm happy to be seated next to Papa. He's a Maasai from Tanzania. It's good because he's here, because he's an elder. I'm feeling like there is a gap between the young generation in the indigenous people and the older generations. So when we talk of land rights, I'm giving an instance whereby we as the young people in universities and leading younger organizations would stand and demonstrate for the injustices done to our people. But the same people we fight for are the ones that are going to be manipulated so easily with the leaders through handouts, and they sign contracts that are not going to favor us as the indigenous people. And so the younger generation, we feel like even if we want to scream at the top of our voices, we never heard, because the elders will make the decision at the end of the day, because the youth, we don't have a voice when it comes to land ownership, when we don't have a voice when it comes to community ownership, because we're still young and we're still being nurtured by our elders. So my question is, how are we going to work, the younger generations and the older generations, so we can ensure that we fix the problem and the dividends amongst us? Because I feel like the dividends is what is causing us lose the way, because the younger generation can explain what carbon credits is. They can explain what it means to give out land communally as a conservancy for the wildlife, because you find that at a point wildlife are protected more than human beings. We, the indigenous, lose it because we become more underrated than wildlife. So my question is, how are we going to work together?
Yeah. Yes, thank you very much. I think the youth can provide
yes, I think that even goes for the G20. Maybe that is what we can take over after this communication. How will you support the initiatives like for us? And also, it's actually the truth that the young generation are not aware of what is happening in the IP lands. And also, who decides for the conversion of community land? Like in my community now, we have Northern Rangeland Trust. They have taken over 15,000 acres, 50,000 acres of land. They are doing conservation in our land. And currently we are fighting, intercommunal fighting now. Pokot community is fighting with Dorois community. Dorois is fighting El Chamus. El Chamus is fighting Pokot. So there's a web of conflict because somebody has taken land to do conservancies. So where is the grazing ground for us? We are forced to migrate to other areas to look for pasture. And you see the way our pastoralists now, my people, I'm sorry to say, they're even violent, and the government is fearing them now because they are harmed. I don't know where they get guns from. And what they see is violence. If they see even a government vehicle passing by, they will shoot the government. So it has become a war between the people and the government. So where is our voice? And if we're talking about restoring these dry lands, how will we restore these lands when the government is not even coming to us? The whole of that, there is no road because they call it a disturbed area. It is even gazetted, so no donor will come to us to even do the roads because they fear us already. So again, we need to talk to our people to understand that for development to happen, we need to work with the government first. Secondly, we need to talk to the government to tell them that we have a right as indigenous peoples, because you cannot take development to other regions and leave us, because we will be marginalized forever. People will be going on with their schools and they call us bandits. They'll call us, we don't want development. They call us other names because we don't understand what is happening. We need to appreciate also development as they come in, so that we, as youth, as we go to university, we see a lot of people advancing with education. But if you come to my community, you still find the young, vibrant youth who don't even know what's happening in the world. They don't even see televisions because there's no network coverage. we are still living in the bush because of marginalization. So how do we bring in the voices of indigenous peoples to all these other platforms, and also tell my president that indigenous peoples must develop. And taking development to them is education first, so that we don't become rebellious to any development that is coming to our community. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we're running out of time, so
Just to add one small thing, talking about education, there is an amazing initiative that's launched by the G20 and the International Trade Center community. They support ecopreneurs, and this year it was an award, and the following years is going to be a huge program. So just check it out, because that's really part of the transformation and how we can keep engaging youth and empowering them.
Yeah, absolutely. So the final point I wanted to make before we wrap this up, we are unfortunately running out of time. So it will be one key takeaway, one call to action that each of you, like in a couple of sentences, what do you want people to take out of this event? What is one message that you want to put out there in the world? So literally, like, very simple, couple of sentences max. Perhaps a start from the far right. Emanuela, you can begin.
Okay. Yeah, it's difficult, but yeah, I think I already said what I need to say today. But just a very simple message to indigenous youth who may watch this live streaming. Try to close that intergenerational gap, because we young people, whether you are indigenous or not, we should learn. We need to learn to sit and listen first, and then you know which way that you want to go. So I think for indigenous youth all over the world, I will say, listen to your elders, and then you can find your way where you should heading. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Monica?
I will say we are ready to work together. Anybody that wants to support the indigenous community, yes, climate change is with us, but we have to take action. And by taking action is taking care of humans, and also human right-based approach to any development. We consider that we are humans too, and first thing is food. You cannot jump SDG 13 and leave SDG 1 and 2. Thank you.
Perfect. Federico?
And I'll briefly mention my North Star, which are the 10 people-centered rules for successful and sustainable ecosystem restoration.
Fantastic. And finally, Maria Jose?
Yes, I have to come back to the rights, because for us it's that very important to have our collective rights, including free, prior and informed consent, because I think that we didn't mention it enough just now. But that is very important. And then I also want to stress inclusiveness, because we have our knowledge, we have our knowledge to share, and it can be shared in our own way.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I'll close it at that. I don't want to summarize, because I think those call to actions perfectly summarize what we have been discussing. So I think a big round of applause for our speakers, and we can call it a day. Thank you very much.